The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It had turned into a dull gray, filled with ash and smoke from countless battles that humanity had fought and lost. For centuries, humans had tried to live peacefully among the stars, hoping to prove themselves worthy of respect in a galaxy ruled by powerful alien civilizations. But peace had never been an option for Earth. The aliens saw humanity as weak, inferior, and expendable. And now, after years of humiliation and betrayal, humanity stood at its breaking point. The event that changed everything came to be. Known as the Slaughter, it happened on a cold winter morning when the Crithari Dominion, a coalition of advanced alien species, attacked Earth without warning. Their ships descended like locusts, blotting out what little sunlight remained. Cities burned, oceans boiled, and millions of people died in a matter of hours. The Crithari claimed they were punishing Earth for refusing to surrender its last remaining energy reserves. To them, it wasn't genocide. It was business. But this time, humanity didn't kneel. Survivors crawled out of the rubble, their faces streaked with soot and tears, but their eyes burned with something new: anger. They had spent lifetimes pleading for mercy, making deals, and offering sacrifices to stay alive. No more. Enough was enough. In the weeks following the slaughter, leaders from all corners of the globe gathered in secret bunkers deep beneath the surface of the planet. There, they formed a single united front called the United Earth Council. Among them was Commander Elena Voss, a hardened soldier who had seen too much death and despair. She sat silently at the table, her hands clasped tightly together, replaying memories of the days she failed to protect her troops during the attack. Guilt weighed heavily on her shoulders, but she knew one thing for certain: humanity could not survive another defeat. Dr. Isaac Kim, a brilliant scientist whose inventions had saved lives during the darkest days of the war, joined the council as well. His lab had become a sanctuary for innovation, where he worked tirelessly to develop weapons capable of standing up to the Crithari's superior technology. He believed science held the key to humanity's survival, though he often wondered if it would also be their undoing. Admiral Marcus Halley, a charismatic leader with a booming voice and unshakable determination, took charge of rallying the fractured nations of Earth. He reminded everyone of what they were fighting for: not just survival, but dignity. "We've begged, we've pleaded, and we've bled," he said during one heated meeting. "Now it's time to show the universe that humanity doesn't bow to anyone." The council agreed on a bold plan: broadcast a message across the galaxy, declaring humanity's refusal to play victim any longer. It was risky, as it would likely provoke further attacks, but Admiral Halley insisted it was necessary. "They need to know we're done pretending nice," he declared. And so, the message went out, echoing through space like a thunderclap. "To the Crithari Dominion and all others who seek to destroy us, we are finished pretending. You will answer for what you have done." As the transmission spread, reactions poured in from across the galaxy. Some dismissed it as empty bravado, assuming humanity lacked the strength to back up its words. Others viewed it as a declaration of war, preparing their fleets for retaliation. But for the first time in decades, humanity felt a flicker of hope. They weren't just victims anymore. They were fighters. Commander Voss spent her days overseeing the construction of new ships and training soldiers for the battles to come. She walked among the recruits, watching them practice drills and hone their skills. Many of them were young, barely old enough to hold a weapon, yet they carried themselves with pride. They had grown up hearing stories of Earth's struggles and now wanted to fight for its future. Voss admired their courage, even as she worried about sending them into harm's way. One evening, she stood on the edge of a crater left behind by the slaughter. The ground was still scorched, and twisted metal jutted out like broken bones. She closed her eyes, letting the cool wind brush against her face. Memories flooded her mind: friends lost, promises broken, dreams shattered. But amidst the pain, there was resolve. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "We'll make them pay." Meanwhile, Dr. Kim worked around the clock in his underground lab. His latest project involved harnessing energy from unstable elements found in meteorites. If successful, it could power weapons far beyond anything the Critheri possessed. Sleep became a luxury he couldn't afford, and meals were often forgotten until hunger gnawed at his stomach. Yet, every time doubt crept in, he thought of his family killed during one of the early invasions and pushed forward. "This is for them," he muttered, adjusting dials on a glowing machine. Above ground, Admiral Hale addressed crowds of survivors, urging them to keep faith. He traveled from settlement to settlement, delivering speeches that ignited passion in weary hearts. "We may have been knocked down, but we are not defeated," he shouted, his voice ringing out over makeshift stages. "Together we will rise again." Despite these efforts, challenges loomed large. Resources were scarce, forcing humanity to scavenge from abandoned colonies and raid enemy supply lines. Morale wavered as some questioned whether resistance was worth the cost. Whispers of dissent spread through camps, with factions arguing for peace at any price. But Admiral Hale silenced the doubters with a simple truth. Peace bought with submission is slavery. Is that what we want for our children? Slowly but surely, humanity began to rebuild. Factories churned out weapons, engineers designed faster ships, and strategists plotted daring missions to weaken the Critheri. Each step brought them closer to a reckoning, one that would either restore Earth's place in the galaxy or erase it entirely. And then came the moment that sealed humanity's fate. A scout ship returned from a reconnaissance mission, carrying intel about a critical weakness in the Critheri's defenses. It was a chance, however slim, to strike back. The council convened immediately, debating how best to proceed. Commander Voss argued for a swift surgical assault, aiming to disrupt the Critheri's supply chain. Dr. Kim warned of the risks, pointing out that failure could lead to annihilation. Admiral Hale listened carefully before making his decision. "We attack," he said firmly. "Not because we're ready, but because we have no choice. This is our chance to show them we mean what we say." With those words, humanity embarked on its first offensive since the slaughter. Ships launched into the void, carrying soldiers eager to reclaim their dignity. Among them was Commander Voss, gripping the controls of her fighter as it soared toward the stars. Her heart pounded with anticipation, fear, and determination. Whatever lay ahead, she vowed to see it through. Earth had spoken. Its message had been heard. Now it was time to act. The machines roared to life as humanity began building its arsenal. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in hidden bunkers and repurposed factories, workers labored day and night to construct weapons and ships capable of taking on the Critheri dominion. The air buzzed with activity hammers clanged against metal. Drills whirred, and engineers shouted instructions over the noise. Every piece of scrap metal, every drop of fuel, and every ounce of energy was precious. Humanity couldn't afford waste. Not when survival depended on efficiency. Commander Elena Voss stood at the center of it all, her sharp eyes scanning the chaos around her. She moved between workstations, inspecting progress and offering guidance where needed. Her presence inspired confidence among the workers, though she rarely smiled. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders, but she carried it silently. Each weapon forged, each ship assembled, brought them one step closer to vengeance and one step closer to failure if they weren't careful. Dr. Isaac Kim worked tirelessly in his underground lab, surrounded by glowing screens and humming equipment. His latest invention, a plasma cannon powered by unstable meteorite fragments, promised to level the playing field against the Critheri's advanced technology. But the process was delicate, requiring precision that left little room for error. Kim barely slept, surviving on coffee and adrenaline as he fine-tuned the weapon's design. Failure wasn't an option, not after everything humanity had endured. Admiral Marcus Halley focused on rallying the troops. He traveled from settlement to settlement, addressing crowds of soldiers and civilians alike. "We are no longer victims," he declared, his voice echoing through makeshift halls. "We are warriors, and we will show the universe what happens when you push us too far." His words ignited hope in some and fear in others, but no one could deny his conviction. Under his leadership, humanity prepared for war, not just any war, but a fight for their very existence. Resources were scarce, forcing humanity to get creative. Scavenger teams ventured into abandoned colonies and derelict alien ships, salvaging whatever they could find. Old engines were stripped for parts, broken weapons repaired, and enemy tech reverse-engineered. These efforts yielded mixed results. Some missions returned triumphant, while others ended in disaster. Still, every success brought humanity closer to matching the Critheri's firepower. Commander Voss led several covert operations behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence and testing new technologies in combat. On one such mission, she piloted a prototype fighter equipped with Dr. Kim's plasma cannon. The weapon performed admirably, obliterating a Critheri patrol ship with a single shot. But the victory came at a cost. The blast drained the fighter's power reserves, leaving Voss vulnerable to enemy fire. She narrowly escaped, her heart pounding as she limped back to base. The operation revealed something unexpected: cracks within the Critheri Dominion. Not all member species supported the genocidal policies of their leaders. Some factions whispered of rebellion, tired of endless wars and oppression. Voss saw an opportunity. If humanity could exploit these divisions, they might turn the tide in their favor. But trust was hard to come by in a galaxy built on betrayal. Back on Earth, tensions simmered among humans as well. While most rallied behind Admiral Hale's vision of total resistance, some argued for diplomacy. "Fighting back will only invite more destruction," they said. "We should negotiate before it's too late." Others dismissed this as cowardice, insisting that humanity had already paid too high a price for peace. Debates grew heated, threatening to fracture the fragile unity that had been forged after the slaughter. Admiral Halley silenced the dissenters with a simple truth: diplomacy failed us long ago. They don't want talks, they want submission. Are we willing to give them that? His question hung heavy in the air, unanswered but understood. Humanity had chosen its path, and there was no turning back. A pivotal moment came when a human scout team captured a prototype alien ship equipped with faster-than-light capabilities. The vessel belonged to the Critheri, stolen during a daring raid on one of their outposts. Dr. Kim immediately set to work reverse-engineering the technology, determined to give humanity a fighting chance against superior foes. Days turned into weeks as he pored over schematics and conducted experiments. Finally, he emerged from his lab with a breakthrough: a modified engine capable of propelling Earth ships across vast distances in record time. The discovery sparked renewed hope. With faster ships and powerful weapons, humanity could strike at the heart of the Critheri Dominion. Plans were drawn up for Operation Reckoning, a bold assault aimed at crippling the Critheri Central Command Hub. It was a risky gamble, but Admiral Halley insisted it was necessary. "If we hit them hard enough, they'll crumble," he said during a council meeting. "And if we fail, then at least we go down swinging." Preparations for the operation consumed everyone. Soldiers trained relentlessly, running simulations and practicing maneuvers until they could execute them in their sleep again. Engineers worked around the clock to outfit ships with the latest technology, ensuring they were ready for battle. Supplies were rationed, sacrifices made, and prayers offered to gods many no longer believed in. As launch day approached, nerves ran high. Commander Voss spent hours alone in her quarters, staring at photos of her fallen comrades. She thought about the lives lost, the families torn apart, and the dreams crushed under the boots of invaders. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of her desk, overwhelmed by the enormity of what lay ahead. Yet, beneath the fear, there was resolve. This was their chance to change everything or die trying. Dr. Kim felt the pressure too. He wandered the corridors of his lab late at night, haunted by doubts. What if his inventions didn't work? What if his calculations were wrong? The weight of responsibility bore down on him, threatening to crush his spirit. But then he remembered why he started this journey: to honor those who had died and to ensure that humanity would never kneel again. With renewed determination, he returned to his workbench, tweaking designs and running tests until dawn broke. Admiral Hawley addressed the fleet one final time before departure. Standing on the bridge of the flagship, he looked out at the sea of faces staring back at him. Some were young, barely old enough to shave. Others were seasoned veterans with scars etched into their skin. All shared the same goal: to reclaim Earth's dignity. "Today, we write a new chapter in our history," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "Today, we show the universe that humanity doesn't break. We bend, we bleed, but we do not break." With those words, the fleet launched into space, heading toward the Krithari stronghold. Behind them, Earth faded into the distance, a fragile blue dot clinging to life amidst the void. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and death. But also hope. For the first time in years, humanity faced a future with courage instead of fear. They had built their arsenal, forged their alliances, and steeled their hearts for the battles to come. Whatever happened next, they knew one thing for certain: they would not go quietly into the night. The operation began under the cover of darkness, or as close to darkness as space could offer. Humanity's fleet emerged from hyperspace near a distant star system, their ships cloaked in shadows cast by swirling nebulae. The Krithari stronghold loomed ahead, an imposing fortress bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller patrol vessels. Commander Elena Voss sat at the helm of the flagship, her hands gripping the controls tightly. Her heart raced, but her mind remained calm. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. Admiral Marcus Hawley stood beside her on the bridge, his voice steady as he addressed the fleet over comms. "This is it, soldiers. Today, we show them who we are. No retreat, no surrender. For Earth." His words echoed through the ships, igniting a fire in the hearts of every human aboard. Cheers erupted, followed by silence as everyone focused on the task at hand. The battle was about to begin. Dr. Isaac Kim watched anxiously from the engineering bay, monitoring the performance of the plasma cannons installed on the fleet's lead ships. He muttered prayers under his breath, hoping his designs would hold up against the Krithari's advanced defenses. Around him, engineers scrambled to ensure everything functioned perfectly. The stakes were too high for failure. The first wave of fighters launched from the carriers, streaking toward the enemy like arrows fired into the void. Pilots maneuvered their ships with precision, dodging blasts from Krithari turrets while returning fire. Explosions lit up the darkness as missiles struck targets, sending shards of metal spinning into space. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. Humanity had trained for this. Commander Voss led the charge herself, piloting the flagship straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Its hull shimmered with energy shields, a gift from Dr. Kim's ingenuity. As she closed in on a Krithari destroyer, she gave the order to fire. The plasma cannon roared to life, unleashing a beam of pure energy that sliced through the alien ship like paper. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Voss didn't celebrate. There was still much work to do. The Krithari responded with brutal force, launching waves of fighters and deploying massive warships armed with devastating weapons. Humanity's fleet held its ground, but losses mounted quickly. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, their crews lost forever. Voss clenched her jaw as she watched comrades perish, each death weighing heavily on her soul. But there was no time for grief, not now. Midway through the battle, disaster struck. A squadron of Krithari bombers broke through the defensive line, targeting the flagship. Voss barely managed to evade their attack, but not before one missile struck the ship's portside engines. Alarms blared as smoke filled the corridors, and crew members scrambled to contain the damage. Admiral Hale shouted orders, keeping everyone focused despite the chaos. "We can't fall back," he bellowed. "If we do, it's over." Voss nodded grimly, steering the damaged flagship toward another enemy vessel. She ordered all available power diverted to the plasma cannon, knowing it might leave them vulnerable. But vulnerability was a risk they had to take. With a deafening roar, the cannon fired again, obliterating a second Krithari destroyer. The explosion sent shockwaves rippling through space, shaking nearby ships like leaves in a storm dot. As the battle raged, humanity suffered a devastating blow. Reinforcements arrived, unexpected and unwelcome. The Zora Syndicate, another hostile empire that had long viewed Earth as a threat, joined the fight. Their sleek black ships descended upon the battlefield, unleashing barrages of laser fire that tore through human ranks. Panic spread among the fleet as pilots realized they were outnumbered. Admiral Hale refused to give up. Standing tall on the bridge, he delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. "Listen to me," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "They think we're weak because we're human. They think we'll break under pressure. But they're wrong. We've been pushed to our limits, and we're still standing. For every life lost, for every dream crushed, we will make them pay." His words reignited the fighting spirit of the fleet. Pilots redoubled their efforts, weaving between enemy ships and striking with deadly accuracy. Engineers worked miracles, repairing damaged vessels mid-battle and keeping them in the fight. Even civilians stationed on support ships contributed, loading ammunition and patching wounds with trembling hands. Humanity fought as one, a united force determined to survive. Despite overwhelming odds, humanity managed to turn the tide. Using tactics honed during months of preparation, they lured the Krithari into traps. Ambushing squadrons and isolating larger ships, Dr. Kim's technology proved invaluable, allowing human vessels to disable enemy shields and strike vital systems. Slowly but surely, the Krithari stronghold began to crumble, but victory came at a cost. During the final assault on the command center, Commander Voss made a fateful decision. Realizing the flagship's reactor was destabilizing due to earlier damage, she chose to ram the structure rather than retreat. "It's the only way," she said quietly, her voice firm despite the tears streaming down her face. Admiral Hale tried to stop her, but she cut off communications, leaving him no choice but to watch as the flagship surged forward. The collision was catastrophic. The flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, obliterating the Krithari command hub and dealing a crippling blow to their dominance. Cheers erupted across the fleet as survivors celebrated the hard-won victory. But amidst the joy, there was sorrow for Commander Voss and the brave souls who had given everything to secure humanity's future. As the dust settled, Admiral Hale addressed what remained of the fleet. "We did it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Against all odds we won. But let us never forget the price we paid. Let their sacrifice remind us why we fight and why we must never stop. The battle may have ended, but the war was far from over." The emergence of the Zora Syndicate signaled that humanity's struggles were just beginning. Yet, as the battered fleet limped back toward Earth, there was a sense of pride. They had proven themselves capable of standing toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest powers. And they had shown the universe something important. Humanity didn't go down without a fight. The victory at the Krithari stronghold was bittersweet. Humanity had proven its strength, but the cost had been immense. Ships were lost, lives sacrificed, and wounds both physical and emotional ran deep. Yet, amidst the wreckage of war, a fragile hope began to take root. The universe now knew that Earth was not to be underestimated. For the first time, other oppressed species looked at humanity with something other than pity. They saw potential allies. Commander Elena Voss was gone, her sacrifice etched into the hearts of every survivor. Admiral Marcus Hawley carried her memory like a torch, using it to fuel his determination. He stood on the bridge of the new flagship, staring out at the stars. The fleet limped home, battered but alive. As they approached Earth, Hawley felt the weight of leadership heavier than ever before. Victory against the Krithri was just one step. The galaxy still teemed with enemies who would see humanity crush. Dr. Isaac Kim worked tirelessly to repair damaged ships and improve their technology. His hands trembled as he pieced together broken machinery, haunted by the faces of those who hadn't returned. Yet, even in grief, he found purpose. "We've come too far to stop now," he muttered to himself late at night, surrounded by blueprints and glowing screens. Every invention, every improvement, brought them closer to survival. With the Krithri weakened, humanity turned its attention to forging alliances. Commander Voss's final mission had revealed cracks within the Dominion, and Admiral Hawley intended to exploit them. He sent envoys across the galaxy, seeking out alien races who shared humanity's desire for freedom. Among these was the Luminari, a peaceful yet technologically advanced species that had long suffered under Krithri oppression. Their leaders agreed to meet with human representatives, though cautiously. Elena Voss's protege, Captain Ryan Calder, led the diplomatic mission. A young officer with sharp instincts and a steady hand, Calder had earned respect during the battle. Now, he faced a different kind of challenge, earning trust. The Luminari delegation greeted him aboard their crystalline ship, their translucent forms shimmering with light. They spoke softly, their voices melodic yet wary. "Why should we believe you are any different from the others?" their leader asked, skepticism evident in every word. Calder didn't flinch. "Because we've bled the same blood you have. Because we know what it means to lose everything and fight anyway." His honesty struck a chord. Slowly, hesitantly, the Luminari agreed to an alliance. It wasn't friendship. It was necessity. But it was a start. Back on Earth, tensions simmered among humans as well. Some leaders argued for restraint, fearing retaliation if humanity pushed too hard. Others demanded total annihilation of all threats, convinced that mercy had only invited suffering. Admiral Hawley walked a tightrope between the two factions, trying to keep unity intact. "We can't afford division," he told his council. "Not when the Zorth Syndicate is watching our every move." And watch they did. The Zorth Syndicate, a ruthless empire feared across the galaxy, viewed humanity's resurgence with suspicion. They saw Earth not as a partner, but as a rival, a dangerous upstart that needed to be eliminated. Spies infiltrated human settlements, gathering information and sowing discord. Rumors spread of traitors within the ranks, whispering promises of safety in exchange for betrayal. The rumors proved true in the most devastating way. During a critical planning session, a faction of humans secretly negotiated with the Zorth Syndicate, offering intel about Earth's defenses. In return, they sought autonomy, a promise of protection if they abandoned the fight. When Admiral Hawley uncovered the plot, his fury was absolute. He gathered the traitors in front of the entire council, their faces pale with fear. "You swore loyalty to Earth," he said, his voice low and deadly. "Instead, you sold us out for scraps. For that, there is only one punishment." Without hesitation, he executed them publicly, reinforcing his ironclad resolve. The message was clear. Betrayal would not be tolerated. Yet, even as the crowd cheered, doubts lingered. Could anyone truly be trusted? As preparations for the final confrontation intensified, humanity faced another challenge. Resources were running low. Factories turned out weapons and ships, but raw materials were scarce. Scavenger teams ventured deeper into hostile territory, risking capture or death to gather supplies. Pilots flew dangerous missions, raiding enemy convoys and dodging patrols. Each success brought relief, but each failure reminded them how close they were to collapse. Dr. Kim worked around the clock to stretch what little they had. He redesigned engines to use less fuel, modified weapons to require fewer rare elements, and even created makeshift shields from salvaged parts. His innovations kept the fleet operational, though barely. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by endless hours of tinkering and testing. "If I can buy us one more day," he whispered to himself, "then it's worth it." Amidst the chaos, Admiral Hall prepared his people for what lay ahead. He addressed crowds of soldiers and civilians, reminding them why they fought. "This isn't just about revenge," he said, his voice echoing through makeshift halls. "It's about proving that we deserve a place in this galaxy, that we won't be erased." His words ignited passion and summoned fear in others, but no one could deny his conviction. Finally, the moment arrived. Intelligence reports confirmed that the Krethri remnants and the Zara Syndicate were massing their forces near a dying star. Its gravitational pull threatened to consume anything nearby, making it a perilous battlefield. But it also offered an advantage: unpredictable conditions that could level the playing field. Admiral Hale seized the opportunity. "This is where we finish it," he declared. "For Earth, for all of us." The fleet assembled once more, battered but resolute. Soldiers strapped into their seats, checking weapons and running drills. Engineers scrambled to prepare ships, ensuring every bolt was tight and every system functional. Civilians gathered in shelters, praying for victory. Humanity stood united, ready to face whatever came next. Captain Calder joined Admiral Hale on the bridge of the flagship, his expression grim but determined. "Do you think we can win?" he asked quietly. Hale didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the stars, thinking of all they had lost and all they had gained. Finally, he spoke. "Winning isn't guaranteed, but giving up isn't an option. We've shown the universe what we're made of. Now let's show them what happens when you push us too far." With those words, the fleet launched into space, heading toward the dying star. Behind them, Earth faded into the distance, a fragile blue dot clinging to life amidst the void. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and death. But also hope. For the first time in years, humanity faced the future with courage instead of fear. They had forged alliances, exposed betrayals, and steeled their hearts for the battles to come. Whatever happened next, they knew one thing for certain: they would not go quietly into the night. The fleet arrived at the edge of the dying star system, its light flickering like a candle in the wind. The gravitational pull of the collapsing star created chaos, distorting space and bending time. Ships drifted uneasily, their systems struggling to adapt to the unstable environment. Yet, amidst the turmoil, humanity stood ready. This was it, the final stand. Admiral Marcus Hale stood on the bridge of the flagship, his eyes scanning the battlefield. The Krethri remnants and the Zora Syndicate had assembled a massive armada, their ships forming a wall of steel and fire. It was an overwhelming sight, but Hale refused to show fear. He turned to Captain Ryan Calder, who stood beside him, gripping the railing tightly. "Remember why we're here," Hale said, his voice steady. "For every life lost, for every dream crushed, we will make them pay." Calder nodded, though his heart raced. He thought of Commander Elena Voss, whose sacrifice had paved the way for this moment. Her bravery inspired him, even as doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind. Could they really win against such odds? He pushed the question aside, focusing instead on the task ahead. Dr. Isaac Kim worked furiously in the engineering bay, ensuring the Genesis Blade, a superweapon powered by unstable energy, was ready for deployment. His hands trembled as he adjusted dials and checked readings. The Genesis Blade was humanity's last hope, capable of unleashing catastrophic blasts that could wipe out entire fleets. But each use came at a cost, draining power reserves and risking a catastrophic overload. Kim knew what was at stake. If the weapon failed, humanity would fall dead as the battle began. Human fighters surged forward, weaving through enemy formations with precision. Pilots dodged laser fire and return volleys, their movements sharp and calculated. Explosions lit up the void, sending shards of metal spinning into space. The Luminari joined the fight, their crystalline ships glowing brightly as they unleashed beams of concentrated energy. Together, humanity and its allies held their ground, refusing to give an inch. Captain Calder led a squadron of fighters, diving straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. His ship shuddered under enemy fire, but he pressed on, determined to reach the Critheri command vessel. "Stay close," he shouted over comms, guiding his team through the chaos. One by one, enemy ships fell, their hulls cracking under relentless assault. But for every ship destroyed, two more took its place. On the flagship, Admiral Hal coordinated the attack, his voice calm but commanding. "Focus on the center," he ordered. "Break their line, and we'll have a chance." The fleet responded, concentrating fire on the Critheri flagship. Plasma cannons roared to life, tearing through enemy shields and leaving gaping holes in their armor. Cheers erupted on the bridge as the flagship listed, smoke pouring from its damaged engines. But the Zoroth Syndicate wasn't done. Their sleek black ships descended like vultures, unleashing barrages of missiles that tore through human ranks. Losses mounted quickly, and panic threatened to spread. Hawley clenched his fists, refusing to let despair take hold. "Hold the line," he bellowed. "We've come too far to fall now." In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Kim made a fateful decision. Realizing the Genesis Blade wouldn't hold long enough to destroy both the Critheri and the Zoroth forces, he volunteered to stay behind and manually overload the weapon. "It's the only way," he said quietly, his voice firm despite the tears in his eyes. Engineers tried to stop him, but he pushed them away, climbing into the reactor chamber himself. "Goodbye, my friends," he whispered, activating the overload sequence. The Genesis Blade pulsed with energy, its glow intensifying until it became blinding. Then, with a deafening roar, it exploded, unleashing a wave of destruction that engulfed the enemy fleet. Ships were vaporized instantly, their crews lost forever. The blast shook the very fabric of space, sending shockwaves rippling outward. When the light faded, silence filled the void. Humanity's fleet floated amidst the wreckage, battered but alive. The Critheri remnants and the Zoroth Syndicate were gone, wiped out by Kim's sacrifice. Tears streamed down faces as survivors mourned their fallen comrades, especially Dr. Kim. His final act had saved them all. Admiral Hawley addressed the fleet, his voice thick with emotion. "Today, we prove something to the universe. Never underestimate the fury of a species pushed too far. We fought not just for ourselves, but for every oppressed race across the galaxy. Let this victory remind us of what we can achieve when we stand together." Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. Cities lit up with fireworks, and crowds gathered in streets, cheering for their heroes. But amidst the joy, there was sorrow for those who had given everything to secure humanity's future. Memorials were erected, honoring the brave souls who had sacrificed their lives. Commander Elena Voss and Dr. Isaac Kim were remembered as legends, their names etched into history. Yet, the war left scars that would never fully heal. Earth remained fragile, its resources depleted and its people weary. The galaxy still teemed with threats, and humanity knew peace was fleeting. But for the first time in centuries, they stood tall, not as victims, but as warriors. They had earned respect, even fear, from those who once dismissed them as weak. Admiral Hale looked out at the stars, his heart heavy but hopeful. "This isn't the end," he said softly. "It's a new beginning. We've shown the universe what we're capable of. Now, let's build a future worth fighting for." As the fleet limped home, carrying the weight of loss and triumph, humanity stepped onto the galactic stage as a formidable power. They had faced annihilation and emerged victorious. Though the road ahead was uncertain, they faced it with courage and determination. Earth had spoken, and the universe had listened. And so, humanity moved forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.